Welcome back, participants, Justice Day participants. We have a treat for you as you join us for our keynote address by Nsé Ufot, who is a true warrior for justice, a visionary, and really, truly just a wonderful woman and friend. Nsé is the CEO of the New Georgia Project and its affiliate, the New Georgia Project Action Fund. She leads both organizations with a data-informed approach and commitment to developing tools that leverage technology and culture to shift the way that we interface with our right to vote. You probably have seen her all over the place, including Time Magazine's 100 Next. But I think you see her rolling her eyes. What's most important is she truly holds dear many of the priorities of the Justice Reform Partnership as a Black woman organizer and Atlanta native, graduate of Benjamin Elijah Mays High School. So I don't want to delay it more. I'm just going to hand it over to Nsé to talk to us a little bit about building community out of chaos in this present time.
Um, Greetings, everyone. Peace. Good morning. I want to say thank you to the organizers at the Justice Reform Partnership for inviting me. I want to say thank you to my friend and my sister and my mentor and organizing goals, Tiffany, for the warm introduction. So the first 2 weeks of 2021, low-key may have given us our theme for the year, peaks and valleys. I promised to check back in next year to see if I was right. But after Georgia voters defeated Mr. There's no way I lost Georgia, Mr. Come on, I just need 11,000 votes, Mr. Georgia's 5th congressional district, represented by John Lewis, is in horrible shape, is falling apart, and is crime infested. Georgia voters showed up ready to do it again on January 5th, and we did. And if there's nothing that shows us how to build community, it's the results of our hard work and our labor presented to the country with a big blue bow in the form of Georgia's first Black and first Jewish senators. But back here at home, there are real threats that are threatening to take us back to square one. I know that you know that the fight is going on as we speak under the Gold Dome right now, and many of you do tremendous work in this space. And so I don't have to tell you the hill that we have to climb in order to create the new Georgia that we all want to see. Today, I'd like to spend a little time talking about the power of community, the power of organizing, and how our diverse communities are the solutions that we need, or it's in our diverse communities that we find the solutions that we need to continue to impact the criminal legal system for the better. So today you'll hear several folks talk about the number of bills, the resolutions, and maybe even some of the names of lawmakers that are negatively impacting our criminal legal system. And the reason why I'd like to bring it back to community is because I want to ensure that we all feel empowered to drive change in this area of justice. In discussing community, it's important that we also uplift the importance of organizing. Organizing is how and where it all begins. I don't say this to sound cliche, but I say this to say that it only takes a small spark to become flames that can ultimately change the dynamic of how we live our daily lives. So let me tell you a little more about what I mean. Building community, building a base doesn't happen overnight, neither does organizing. We've seen that as we've worked tilling the soil for that moment that was November 2020. Our communities may have changed, but our goals did not. The community we build must be multilingual, multi-ethnic, multiracial, and encompassing of the New South and the New Georgia. This year, the majority party of the Georgia General Assembly is coming for everything we worked for, every door we knocked, every text and call we made, and every voter we registered, in the form of voter suppression bills. If there's ever a time to build and energize community, this is it. If there's ever a time to organize, the clock is ticking. Writer and activist Zora Neale Hurston says that if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. These bills are our pain, and we refuse to remain silent. We're used to hearing the words voter suppression. We need to make the word organizing just as familiar. The first step is finding a place you feel shares your values and political belief and make this place your organizing home. There was an organizer who said, it's only when you hitch your wagon to something larger than yourself that you realize your true potential. That organizer was President Barack Obama. This is the first step of how we begin to solidify the roots of our organizing to win. The next step is finding your place within that place to which you can hitch your wagon of interest. It could be fighting for economic justice, reproductive rights, or voter outreach. Excuse me. The next step is engagement. It's one thing to get involved and to have your name on the email list, but organizing is a verb and requires action. Engagement by listening is one of the first lessons taught at New Georgia Project. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Now it's time to identify issues that impact our community and are usually the root cause for why we're organizing in the first place. We've engaged by listening, and now it's time to pull out the chart paper, notebooks, and/or tablets and solidify what it is we're fighting for and why. Setting goals and objectives is the next step. What do you want to see? At the New Georgia Projects, one of our goals is continuing to register 50,000 voters each year, no matter what. Global pandemic, lawsuits, voter suppression, it doesn't matter. That is the tactic that we have chosen. That is the contribution to the larger ecosystem. That is our lane. And so thinking about what is your lane? What is your contribution in this moment? What is it that we want to see for ourselves, for our families, for our communities? That your organizing goal could be to bring attention to criminal legal reform directly in your community. I imagine that that's why many of you are here today, if not all of you. When organizers Martin Luther King and Barack Obama told us the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, they were warning us the job would not be complete with one fight, one march, or one election. Suppressing the vote ties squarely into criminal legal reform. I know that I am preaching to the choir here, but it must be said. When we do not have adequate representation in our courtrooms, in our district attorneys' offices, in our sheriff's offices, and in the legislative bodies that make the laws that govern these individuals, we know that we do not have true justice and we never will. Excuse me. In the Georgia legislature at various stages, we have the following pieces of legislation working through their process. There are bills that will require phone companies to make the location of information of subscribers available to law enforcement agencies. There are bills that prevent counties from reducing funding for county police departments and for other municipalities to reduce funding for their police departments. There's basically the increased criminalization of drag racing, enhanced penalty for unlawful assemblies, and then we have items that are not on the floor but still need to be addressed, like prison overcrowding, particularly in the midst of COVID, prisons that should be closed, and count discussions of building new jails, some of them actually designed as private and for-profit. We have some real foot soldiers doing good work on these issues, but we cannot rest. Our communities are multiracial, multilingual, all religious sectors, our queer siblings, femmes. We all have to come together as one community and start the spark needed to create the flames that will reimagine our criminal justice systems. What would happen if we had a minimum wage of $15 an hour, or adequate mental health services, or a public school system that was properly funded? I would love to know what would happen if we had broadband across the state and teachers were paid according to the value that they bring to our communities and to our lives. Could you imagine what would happen if we stopped the school to prison pipeline that's alive and well? So while I'm here giving you my brief rendition of the I Have a Dream speech of 2021, let me go back to my organizing roots. Our ground game is strong in Georgia. We have some communities that are organized, and we have some that need a little extra help and a lot of additional funding. But I won't digress into the need for the philanthropic community to lean in on more of our Black-led and women-led and Latino-led organizations in the South. we'll save that discussion for another day. We have some amazing young people that are organizing around this very issue. And as a community, we have to support them and uplift them as they learn to navigate this terrain. Right now, we are tracking 253 bills that have been introduced with provisions that restrict voting access and 704 bills that expand voting access across the country. In case you think this is just happening in Georgia because of the white lash from November, Georgia has dozens of bills on the floor that more than anything destroy our community's freedom to vote and access to the ballot. Building community this year means showing up. Building community this year continues to mean holding our elected officials accountable. Building community this year means the work is not over. How can we build community? When I think of community, I remember the voters in Randolph County, in the deepest part of the rural Black Belt near Albany, Georgia, who had 90% voter turnout in November's elections and turned around and did it again for the runoff. Every one of them voted for national and statewide issues happening in their daily lives, like the COVID-19 ravishing through the community, once known as a COVID hotspot in Southeast Georgia. The county was one of many in rural Georgia to have a hospital closed. When I think of community, I also remember the young folks, also known as Zoomers, who showed up overwhelmingly at the polls this election. Over 100 to 70,000 of them to vote and have their voice counted in this election. The New Georgia Project engaged more than 143,000 Black voters under 35 who ended up voting early. Just these two examples show what community looks like in this political landscape, or out here in these streets, as we say. We're building a new Georgia, we're building the bench, we're building a new electorate, we're building community and the change that we want to see. Building community doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen during one election cycle. It doesn't happen from mobilizing voters. And that's not the way that we continue to win. Our moment in the sun may be over politically, but we must organize and plan for more. Now, I challenge you to start that spark or fan that flame that will strengthen your resolve in building the Georgia of our dreams, building the Georgia that currently only exists in our minds. It's possible, and I know that it's possible because of community. Thank you.
A round of applause for NSAID. Thank you so much. We needed to hear about all of the connections between what we're experiencing and the imperative to exercise our right to vote. Thank you so much for being here with us. New Georgia Project and NSAID are recipients of an award that we give out when Justice Day is in person. So you are kindred, you are family, and we are eternally grateful for everything that you do.
Thank you so much. Peace, you all.